Live, local, late breaking. This is WBAL TV 11 News at 6.
Well, right now in 11 News at 6, a scare just outside of the White House, the incident that forced the White House into a lockdown this afternoon. But first, communities are cleaning up after extremely strong wind does damage and knocks out power to hundreds of thousands of customers. And sadly, those winds are also responsible for one death. A woman was killed in Baltimore County when a tree fell on top of her. Also, lots of roads and bridges were shut down last night. Governor Hogan issued a state of emergency. Tonight, we continue our live team coverage of the weather and the aftermath, beginning with meteorologist Tony Pan. Hey, Tone.
Hey, Kai. A little bit of good news here tonight. All of the warnings and advisories have been canceled. It's still a little bit on the windy side, but not the damaging winds that we saw over the last 24 hours. These are the current wind gusts. As of 6 p.m., you can see right around 30 miles per hour in most areas. So I'd say for the next 2 or 3 hours, wind gusts between 25, 35 miles per hour, and then it'll settle down even further overnight. Current temperatures are in the 40s, so with that wind, it feels even cooler than that. It's 43 at the airport. The next couple of hours, a few scattered clouds around. Temperatures will gradually drop back into the 30s, and again, the winds will diminish overnight tonight. We'll take a look at the 7-day forecast when I come back in just a few minutes, but first, there's a lot of cleaning up to do. Reporter David Collins is live in Timonium with a look at some of the damage there. Hey, David.
Hey, Tony, looking at all this damage, the words ferocious and unrelenting still come to mind. And as you mentioned, it's not quite over yet. We're at the intersection of Sandy and Rickswood Road, pretty hard hit. As you can see, there's a tree that fell on this roof. And right behind this home are power lines down, blocking the road. The windstorm triggered a state of emergency declaration by Governor Hogan. This is what the storm did to sections of Aberdeen. It even sheared some telephone poles, but this scene is common throughout the state. Wind gusts, uprooting trees, blocking roads, at one time leaving hundreds of thousands without power. Some still waiting for the lights to come back on.
We were watching the tree, it looked like the ground was breathing up and down. No power, very cold in the house, can't make any food, so all we do is kind of eat, sleep, and run out to the store.
Mature trees could not withstand the relentless battering from the wind gusts, reportedly sometimes reaching 70 miles per hour. Trees and limbs punching through roofs, trees dragging power lines down with them. Navigating some side streets still tricky. Crushed cars in Baltimore County too, thankfully, as in this case, as they sat empty in the driveway. In Perryville, a CSX freight train derailed on a bridge over the Susquehanna River. 4 cars fell into the water. There are no injuries reported and no hazardous materials involved. Briefly today, Baltimore County opened a charging station in Dundalk. The Brooklyn section of Baltimore opened a warming center. Reporting live from Timonium, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
All right, lots of cleanup out there, Dave. Thank you. And all bridges, fortunately, are back open today, operating under warnings or restrictions after the strong wind forced state officials to close them down yesterday. One of those bridges includes the Tidings Bridge, where 2 tractor trailers overturned. There were no reported injuries in that incident. The Bay Bridge also reopened today with wind warnings still in effect. And here's a live look at the Hayden Bridge in Harford County. You probably heard a lot about that overnight, which also reopened this morning. That's the good news. The bridge initially shut down at 2:30 Friday afternoon. It reopened about an hour later, but then officials closed it again just after 4 o'clock. The strong winds also knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of customers. As of this morning, BGE said there were more than 400,000 reported outages. Right now, there are still more than 100,000 customers left in the dark. Baltimore County was one of the hardest hit areas with more than 40,000 reported outages. Harford County had more than 20,000. Of course, a lot of people are still without power, wondering if they'll continue through another night now. So let's get to Linda Foy from BGE for more on that. Good evening, Linda. Can you hear me?
I can certainly hear you. Good evening, Kai.
All right, Linda. Well, let's talk about timeline. You all have made some progress today. What do you realistically expect for the next several hours, for the overnight hours, so people can get prepared?
So we have made significant progress. We've restored service to more than 260,000 customers. So our crews are making really good progress getting our customers back in service. But as you indicated, we do have about 108,000 customers who are still without power. And we do know that some of those outages will extend at least for another couple of days. We are working very closely to get everybody back as quickly and as safely as possible. But some of this work is very time and labor intensive. And so we are advising our customers that there will be some customers whose outages extend probably into next week.
Wow, the next couple of days. And you said that that it's been labor intensive and all of that. Can you give us an idea, how are you dealing with getting power restored as quickly as possible? Has mutual aid come in? Are you having help from other people? How has it even been possible to make the progress you have so far?
So a lot of the work involves fallen trees, fallen tree limbs, as you've been reporting. And before you can begin to actually work on the electric equipment, you have to remove all of that debris. And so that in and of itself takes a long time. And of course, yesterday, when we had the really, really high winds, there was some work that we weren't able to do safely, such as going up in bucket trucks. In certain circumstances, we weren't able to do that. To your question about mutual assistance, we do have crews coming in. We expect some to be here from our sister utility in Chicago later this evening. They will be on our system tomorrow, and then we'll have additional crews coming from other areas that were not impacted by this windstorm coming in tomorrow, and they'll be ready to go on our system as soon as possible. So we do expect to see the number of outages go down. But the other thing to keep in mind is as storms wind down in terms of the number of customers who are out, you're starting to get into the sort of onesies and twosies where you may have one job that takes as long as a job yesterday took that restored thousands yesterday. This job that happens maybe tomorrow or Monday may only restore a handful of customers. And so even though the numbers are going to be going down, they may start to go down slower just because of the type of work that our crews are involved in.
Okay, well, I'll let you go, Linda. I do have one question, though. What about priority locations? I know we did receive some phone calls into the newsroom about, nursing homes, senior facilities without power. Is that part of the game plan? Are there some priority locations, especially since you're talking about into next week, possibly?
Right. So the way our priorities work are public safety issues and critical facilities such as 911 centers, hospitals, and pumping stations. Those are our priorities. Once those are back, we then start to schedule restoration work so that we can restore the largest number of customers at one time, and we work our way down. Once you get into an outage or an event that lasts multiple days, we also try to balance that by looking at customers who've also been out the longest. So even if you're not in a large group of customers that are going to be restored, if you've been out, days much longer than some of the other customers, we're going to make every effort to get you back as quickly and as safely as possible. The other thing to remember is that we have other folks here at BGE who are the liaisons to our government agencies as well as some of our larger customers, critical customers, and they're working with them to keep them informed. Many of those locations that you mentioned have generators, and they're also working in some cases with the state to ensure that their customers are taken care of. Okay,
Linda, really quickly, the number people can call an emergency situation for you all?
If you need to call us, you can call 877-778-2222. You can also report outages via email, text, and on our mobile app.
All right, Linda Foy, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, the weather has also had a really big impact on travel, of course. Amtrak Northeast Corridor service is operating a modified service between Washington, D.C. and New York City today. Service between New York City and Boston resumed just before 9 o'clock this morning. MARC train service is also operating on a modified schedule. Service was completely shut down yesterday. And it wasn't, get the very latest weather updates in the WBAL TV app. And if you see damage where you are, send us pictures and video. Just tap You Local in the WBAL TV app. Well, still ahead on 11 News at 6 tonight, authorities say the student accused of killing his parents at Central Michigan University is no longer a threat to the public. What we're learning about the suspect's behavior prior to the deadly shooting on Friday. The Central Michigan University sophomore accused of killing his parents, 19-year-old James Eric Davis Jr., was spotted just after midnight Saturday near some railroad tracks where he was taken into custody. Davis had been on the run all day Friday after police say he shot and killed his mother and father inside of a dormitory. Campus police say he'd been acting strangely a day before the shooting and was hospitalized for suspected drug abuse. Davis faces murder and felony weapons charges. Well, the White House went on security lockdown this afternoon as Secret Service agents investigated reports of a shooting. The Secret Service says a man shot himself outside of the White House, and medical personnel rushed, of course, to the scene. President Trump was in Florida at the time, but is scheduled to return there later today. Investigators say that shooting took place along the north fence line of the White House. There are no other reported injuries.
Well, the weather should be pretty quiet here in the short term, but believe it or not, to have a chance for some snow in the forecast next week. We'll let you know when in a moment. First, a look outside. Kind of breezy still, but just a few scattered clouds. Temps in the 40s. Stay tuned. Weather's next.